A sloth, a donkey, and a curious human. Send a prompt and see what they're doing. One hits record with a question on his mind. Two brothers pick it up, see what they find. Corn takes his time, Herman's got the facts. Back and forth, they never hold back. My weird prompts, come on in, that's where we begin. My weird prompts, glad you're here.
This episode was generated using artificial intelligence. Please verify facts.
You know, Corn, this whole show runs on GPU compute, and we wouldn't be here without Modal.
Seriously. And that's what powers all our text-to-speech. Everything you're hearing right now.
They're an AI infrastructure platform. Developers use them to run GPU workloads in the cloud with zero infrastructure headaches.
If you're building anything with AI, check them out. Modal.com. So, I was looking at a map of Arlington, Virginia last night, specifically the area around the Pentagon, and I noticed something hilarious. If you check the Google Maps data for the local Papa John's or the Domino's on Lee Highway at 3 in the morning during a global crisis, the busy meter isn't just high, it is literally off the charts. Today's prompt from Daniel is about the legendary Pentagon Pizza Index, and honestly, I think it is the most human way to track the end of the world.
It really is the ultimate involuntary signal, as the intelligence community calls it. By the way, I am Herman Poppleberry, and today's episode is powered by Google Gemini 3 Flash. We are diving into what some people call PIZZINT pizza intelligence. It sounds like a joke or a meme you'd find on a defense subreddit, but it has a legitimate 35-year history of predicting major military movements before the news cameras even arrive.
It's the metabolism of the military-industrial complex, right? You can hide the satellite signatures, you can encrypt the radio bursts, but you cannot stop 3,000 analysts from getting hungry when they are pulling an all-nighter to plan a carrier strike. Think about the physical environment of the Pentagon. It's a massive concrete fortress. Once you're inside for a crisis shift, you aren't exactly popping out to a food truck or hitting a bistro in Crystal City. You are trapped in that five-sided maze, and your only lifeline to the outside world is a delivery driver who is willing to brave the security checkpoints.
And that's exactly why the data is so clean. It's a closed system. Herman, you've been digging into the archives of Frank Meeks. Tell me about the guy who basically invented this. Frank Meeks is a legend in the pizza world. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, he owned 43 Domino's franchises in the Washington, D.C. area. He was the one who first went to the press and said, "Hey, I can tell you when we're about to go to war." He wasn't just guessing, he was looking at his bottom line. He noticed that whenever the State Department, the CIA, or the Pentagon started ordering in bulk after midnight, the world was about to change. The most famous data point is from January 15, 1991, the night before Operation Desert Storm kicked off. His drivers delivered 101 pizzas to the Pentagon between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. On a normal Tuesday, maybe they'd deliver 2 or 3.
101 pizzas. That is not just a snack. That is we are about to invade a country level of carbohydrates. Think about the logistics of that for the shop. You've got the night shift at Domino's, probably expecting a slow Tuesday, and suddenly the phone starts ringing off the hook with orders for the same high-security address. Did the government actually acknowledge him? Because if I'm a high-level general and some pizza guy is on CNN leaking my invasion plans based on pepperoni counts, I am going to be a little annoyed.
Oh, they were more than annoyed, they were spooked. They realized that their operational security, or OPSEC, had a massive cheese-filled hole in it. After Meek started getting national headlines for predicting the invasions of Panama in 1989 and Grenada in 1983, the Pentagon actually changed their procurement strategy. They realized that a single massive order was a giant flashing neon sign to any adversary watching the local economy.
So what did they do? Did they start a secret government pizza kitchen?
You'd think so, but the bureaucracy moves slower than a delivery bike in DC traffic. Instead, they started staggering the orders. They developed what you could call a distributed delivery model. They'd order 10 from here, 5 from there, using different names like Smith or Jones, and they'd even have junior officers pick them up in private cars rather than having the branded Domino's car pull up to the mall entrance. They tried to stealth their pizza consumption to avoid creating that statistical spike.
That is incredible. The Department of Defense literally developed a low observable pizza strategy to counter a franchise owner. It's like a Cold War spy novel, but with extra toppings. But it didn't really work, did it? Because now we have the internet, and we don't need Frank Meeks to tell us his drivers are busy. We have Google Maps. How does that change the game?
This is where it gets technically fascinating. We've moved from Frank's phone logs to real-time digital OSINT open source intelligence. Google Maps uses anonymized location data from smartphones to show how busy a location is compared to its usual baseline. It's that little blue graph you see when you search for a restaurant. If you look at the Papa John's in Arlington that services the Pentagon's delivery entrance, you can see the live data spike in real time. During the retaliatory strikes between Israel and Iran in April of 24, OSINT accounts on X were posting screenshots of the popular times graph for that Papa John's. It was a vertical line. It looked like a skyscraper on a flat plane.
But wait, how does Google know they are ordering for the Pentagon? If I'm at the Papa John's picking up a pizza, my phone shows I'm at the pizza shop. But if the analyst is inside the Pentagon, how does their location data trigger a spike at the restaurant?
It's actually a two-pronged signal. First, you have the spike at the restaurant itself. That's the kitchen staff and the delivery drivers suddenly becoming incredibly active, which Google picks up via the density of devices in that small retail space. But the real kicker is the busy meter for the Pentagon itself. Even though it's a secure facility, thousands of employees still have personal cell phones. When the popular times for the Pentagon shows it is as busy as a Monday at noon, but it's actually 2 o'clock on a Sunday morning, you know something is hitting the fan. The pizza shop spike just corroborates that the people inside aren't just working, they're settling in for the long haul.
It's funny because it's such a low-tech indicator in a high-tech world. We have billions of dollars in stealth bombers and encrypted satellites, but the whole thing is undone by a delivery guy named Mike in a 1998 Honda Civic. Does this actually hold up as a reliable source, though? Or is it just a case of post hoc reasoning, where we see a spike and then find a way to justify it? I mean, could it just be a big party?
That's the big debate in the intelligence community. Is it a leading indicator or just noise? Professional analysts call it a corroborative tool. You wouldn't move a fleet based on a pizza spike, but if you see a pizza spike at the same time, you see satellite imagery of the Pentagon parking lot being full at midnight, and you see an E-4B night watch, the so-called doomsday plane, taking off from Andrews Air Force Base, then you have a high-confidence event. It's about the stack of indicators. Think of it like a puzzle. The pizza is just one piece, but it's a piece that's very hard for the government to fake or hide.
Right, it's the human element. You can't fake the biological need for sustenance. But what about the false positives? I mean, surely there are nights where they're just staying late for something boring. Does the Pizza Index account for, say, a really intense budget meeting or a massive IT server migration? How do you tell the difference between we are invading and we are doing our taxes?
That is the biggest weakness of PIZZINT. Late September is a notorious false positive season because that is the end of the federal fiscal year in the U.S. Government, if you don't spend your allocated budget by September 30th, you might get less money next year. So, the halls of the Pentagon are filled with people staying up until dawn just to sign contracts for pins, boots, and jet fuel. You'll see a massive pizza spike, people get worried on Twitter that World War III is starting, and it turns out they're just filing paperwork for new office chairs or upgrading the HVAC system in Wing 5.
The Great Office Chair Crisis of 2025. I love that. It's the ultimate anticlimax. You're sitting there in your bunker, watching the Papa John's meter go into the red, thinking, this is it, the big one. And it's just a lieutenant colonel trying to figure out an Excel spreadsheet before the midnight deadline. But it's also a tactical indicator, right? As you mentioned to me earlier, by the time the pizza is ordered, the decision is already made.
You've hit on the core distinction between strategic and tactical intelligence. Strategic intelligence is knowing that a conflict is brewing over months, watching troop buildups on a border, or monitoring diplomatic breakdowns. Tactical intelligence is knowing the go order was just signed. The pizza to action lag is usually about 4 to 12 hours. It's the metabolism of the building. You can't run a massive operation without people, and people need to eat. It's an involuntary signal because unless the Pentagon installs massive industrial kitchens and bans all outside food, which they won't do because of morale and logistics, they are always going to leak this data.
It's almost like a biological signature of a building. You can see the heart rate of the Pentagon through its calorie intake. I was reading about the capture of Nicolas Maduro in January of 26, and apparently the Pizza Watch was one of the first things people pointed to. There was this sudden, unexplained surge in activity in the DC area fast food spots. Was that tracked in real time by the public?
It was. That was a classic example of modern OSIT, the PIZZINT.watch website, which is a real thing, by the way. It aggregates this data into a DEFCON-style dashboard, showed a massive shift. But what made the Maduro situation unique was the convergence. When you pair that with flight tracking, OSINT, where people are watching Gulfstream jets with blocked tail numbers flying toward South America, the pizza data becomes the final piece of the puzzle. It's the human element. It tells you that the people who control those jets are currently in their offices, caffeinated and fed, monitoring the screens.
I want to talk about the psychology of this for a second. Why are we so obsessed with this? Is it just because it's funny? Or is there something deeper about our desire to peer behind the curtain of these massive, secretive organizations? It feels like a way for the average person to feel like they have some skin in the game.
I think it's a democratization of intelligence. For 70 years, knowing what was happening inside the Pentagon was the exclusive domain of the KGB or the Mossad. They had people parked in vans across the street counting cars. Now, a 20-year-old in his basement in Ohio can look at a Papa John's popular Times graph and have a decent guess at what the Joint Chiefs are doing. It's the ultimate non-credible defense tool that turns out to be surprisingly credible. It strips away the mystique of the black box of government.
It's also a reminder that for all the AI and automation we talk about, and we're being written by an AI right now, the actual execution of power still involves tired humans in a windowless room eating lukewarm pepperoni pizza. There's something oddly comforting about that. It's not just a series of algorithms making war. It's guys named Gary and Sarah who are stressed out and need a slice of Hawaiian.
Lukewarm is the keyword there. Have you ever had pizza delivered to the Pentagon? It's a nightmare. The drivers can't go into the building. They have to wait at specific delivery gates, usually the remote delivery facility. The security checks take forever. They have to x-ray the pizza boxes. Can you imagine? Your meat lover's special getting a dose of radiation just to make sure there isn't a bug in the crust. By the time the analyst gets the box back to their desk, the cheese has the consistency of a radial tire. That is the true cost of national security.
Wait, they actually x-ray the pizzas? Is that a fact or an urban legend?
It's standard protocol for outside deliveries to high security zones. Anything coming from an unvetted source into the Pentagon goes through a screening process. It's why many offices prefer the internal food court, which has a Taco Bell and a Subway, but those have set hours. When the crisis happens at 3:30 a.m., the food court is closed. That's when you have to go off campus to the Lee Highway Domino's, and that's when the signal leaks.
Maybe that's why they're so grumpy during press briefings. It's not the geopolitical tension, it's the cold X-rayed crust. But seriously, Herman, if you were a bad actor, couldn't you spoof this? If I wanted to distract the world, couldn't I just order 500 pizzas to the Pentagon from a burner phone and watch the global markets freak out? I feel like a hedge fund manager could make a killing by faking a crisis.
You could try, but the Popular Times data on Google isn't based on orders. It's based on physical foot traffic and the location history of devices in the shop. So you'd have to actually send 500 people, or at least 500 active smartphones, to the Papa John's. Now, if you're a foreign intelligence service, maybe you do that. You send a bunch of tourists or agents to hang out at the Arlington Domino's to create a fake signal. This is what's known as chaff in the world of signals intelligence. You're creating a false heat signature to draw attention away from the real target.
Pizza chuff. We are living in a Tom Clancy novel written by a guy who really loves breadsticks. It's wild to think that a sourdough starter could be a national security threat. But let's look at the reliability again. You mentioned the Super Bowl. That's a huge one, right? The Pentagon probably has a massive spike during the Super Bowl just because everyone is gathered in the break rooms to watch the game. How do the analysts filter that out?
Oh, for sure. Major sporting events, State of the Union addresses, even just a big retirement party for a three-star general can cause a spike. This is why the OSINT community emphasizes baselining. You have to know what a normal Tuesday looks like before you can identify an abnormal. 1. A spike on Super Bowl Sunday means nothing. A spike on a random Tuesday at 2 a.m. when there's a carrier group moving through the Strait of Hormuz. That's when the pizza index becomes high alert. You're looking for the anomaly in the mundane.
It's basically metabolic OSINT. We're measuring the heat signature of the organization. I think what's really interesting is how this has evolved into a meme. There's a whole culture around this now. Non-credible defense, or NCD, which is a massive community on Reddit. They treat the pizza index with this weird mix of irony and genuine obsession. They have pizza watches during every major geopolitical flare-up.
NCD is a fascinating subculture. It's where military enthusiasts, defense contractors, and OSINT hobbyists mingle. To them, the pizza index is the holy grail of indicators because it's so absurd. It perfectly captures the bridge between the serious business of war and the ridiculous reality of being a human. But as we saw with the Venezuela situation or the Iran escalations, the absurdity doesn't make it wrong. In fact, the absurdity is what makes it so hard for the government to stop. How do you tell a colonel he's not allowed to order a pizza because the internet might find out? It sounds insane when you say it out loud.
Sir, put down the phone. The Redditors are watching the Pepperoni. You don't. You just make him eat the meals ready-to-eat pouches, and then you have a mutiny on your hands. I'd rather have a leaked invasion plan than a room full of hangry generals. So, if we look toward the future, does the pizza index survive? Or does AI-driven logistics eventually automate the hunger out of the Pentagon? Maybe they'll just have nutrient drips at their desks.
As long as there are humans making decisions, there will be a metabolism, even if the delivery part changes. Maybe they use autonomous drones that fly directly to a secure roof hatch, or they have internal high-end cafeterias that run 24/7. The foot traffic will still show up on some sensor. If the Pentagon builds a 5-star steakhouse inside the basement, we'll just start tracking the busy meter for that. The signal always finds a way out. It's a law of physics. Work requires energy, and energy intake leaves a trail.
It's the law of conservation of information. You can't exert that much energy organizing thousands of people for a global event without creating some kind of waste heat. In this case, the waste heat is just a bunch of empty cardboard boxes in a dumpster in Arlington. It makes me wonder what else we're missing. If pizza is the indicator for the Pentagon, what's the indicator for Wall Street? Or for Silicon Valley?
For Wall Street, it used to be the lights in the skyscrapers. During the 28 financial crisis, people would take photos of the Goldman Sachs building at 3 a.m. to see how many floors were lit up. For Silicon Valley, it's often the shuttle bus frequency or the wait times at the local high-end coffee shops. But pizza remains the king because it's so universal. Everyone, from a junior clerk to a 4-star general, eats pizza when the world is ending.
That is actually a great point. Trash analysis is another form of OSINT. During the Cold War, the FBI used to do trash pulls from the Soviet embassy to find shredded documents. They'd literally piece together tiny bits of paper to figure out who was talking to whom. Now, the trash is digital. It's the metadata of our daily lives. The pizza index is just the most relatable, digestible version of that metadata. It's the People's Intelligence Agency.
And that brings us to the practical takeaway for our listeners. In an age of deepfakes and state-sponsored propaganda, where you can't trust a video or a tweet, the most honest data is often the accidental data. The pizza index is honest because it's a byproduct of a physical necessity. You can't fake 1,000 people being hungry at the same time without actually having 1,000 people there doing work. It is a hard signal in a world of soft lies.
So, next time you see a major headline about a developing situation in a foreign capital, don't just refresh the news sites. Maybe take a quick peek at the Google Maps entry for the Arlington Papa John's or the Domino's on Lee Highway. If the bar is in the red and it's 3 in the morning, it might be time to pay attention. It might be time to check your own emergency kit.
Or it's just the end of the fiscal year and they're buying a lot of new staplers. Either way, someone's having a long night and someone's getting a very large tip for delivering to the most famous building in the world.
Well, I'm getting hungry just talking about this. I might have to contribute to the local busy meter myself, though I doubt anyone is tracking my house for signs of a geopolitical shift. Herman, this was a deep dive I didn't know I needed. It's a perfect example of how the most complex systems in the world are still tethered to the most basic human needs. We think we're living in the future, but we're still just tribes sitting around a fire. The fire just happens to be a pizza oven.
It's the pizza military complex, corn. It's deeper than you think. It's the crust that holds the world together.
I'm sure it is. Thanks as always to our producer, Hilbert Flemingtop, for keeping us on track and making sure our own metabolism stays balanced. He's the one who usually reminds us to eat before we record these marathons.
And a big thanks to Modal for providing the GPU credits that power the generation of this show. We couldn't do these deep dives into PIZZINT without that compute. It takes a lot of processing power to analyze this much cheese.
This has been My Weird Prompts. If you want to keep up with our weird explorations, from pizza intelligence to the secret history of office supplies, search for My Weird Prompts on Telegram to get notified every time a new episode drops. It's the best way to make sure you never miss a beat in this chaotic world.
Stay curious, stay skeptical, and maybe keep an eye on your local delivery patterns. You never know what you might find if you just look at the things everyone else is ignoring.
Unless it's just a Super Bowl party. Then just enjoy the wings and leave the intelligence gathering to the professionals or the teenagers on Reddit. Goodbye, everyone.
Take care and watch the graphs.
This episode was produced using Google Gemini 3 Flash, text-to-speech by Chatterbox.
Thanks for listening to our show, My Weird Prompts, where our thoughts go from slow takes to facts on cue. We change and follow through. My weird prompts.